Welcome to our series on emotional intelligence for pastors. Now, you may or may not have heard of that term, emotional intelligence, but it's been coined by a guy named Daniel Goleman a few years ago, wrote this book, and other people have done a lot of research on this. The fact is that most endeavors in life involve people and relationships with people, and that means it involves emotions and how we get along with other people's emotions and our own. And so, emotional intelligence, however, is not always taught in seminary. It's not always something that we're aware of. We have to learn, we have to grow in this area. And so it's so vital in ministry because so much of ministry deals with people and responding to people in the right way. And so when we're talking about emotional intelligence, we're talking about being aware of our own feelings and responding appropriately to our own feelings, and also being aware of the emotions of other people around us and how to respond to those. So let's break it down a little bit. Let's talk about that self component of it, where you could call it EQ, self. You know, they call it EQ versus IQ. Mm-hmm. And let's talk about that first part of emotional intelligence as it relates to ourselves. So how would you describe or define that?
Well, I think this is a really important topic and question, and honestly, we need to become experts on parsing out and understanding our own emotions, because it will either really benefit our ministry or it will shipwreck our ministry. And so this is a really sexist comment right now, but I think we'll all be able to relate to it, that men typically are not very good about getting a handle on their emotions and understanding where they come from, why they have them. And so I think we really have to explore that. And oftentimes if we're married, our wives can help us try to kind of figure that out. But we absolutely have to figure out the source of why we're elated or just really angry or frustrated. So understanding where our emotions are coming from and becoming experts handling that is critical to ministry.
Okay, so we have to be able to identify our emotions. Right. And then respond appropriately to them. So what have you observed about that over the years?
Yeah, I think emotions are one of those things, as you said. I think sometimes for us as guys that there is a tendency to think that we don't have them, but the truth is we do. And they come out often in unhealthy ways. And if we refuse to acknowledge that or to learn how to deal with those emotions, they can hurt relationships with other people, the relationships we're most closest to. And also, I think those in ministries that we are over and help to work through.
Yeah. So, for example, I might feel anger at something that someone maybe opposed a program that I was trying to put forward in the church. If I don't recognize that I'm feeling angry, then I'll probably be unaware of how that's going to affect other people around me. I might deny it or whatever. It's going to eat me up inside. So that's just an illustration of a lot of the. Sure. You could fill in the blanks with a lot of different emotions, right? We have to be willing to acknowledge it, own it, realize the effect of it, and then be able to respond appropriately to it. So what about the other side of it? So the other side of emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize other people's emotions and respond appropriately to them. So what does that look like?
Well, I think whenever you're dealing with people and knowing that they are emotional people, sometimes the reverse happens. They may respond in an emotion towards you, and being able to identify what you are seeing. And oftentimes the emotion is not the real issue. There's usually an issue behind the emotion. Yeah. And so I think being able to see what's going on with a person, what are they expressing to you, and what's really going on that's causing this to happen, which oftentimes it's never really the thing at hand. It's always oftentimes something else.
That's a great point. So being able to become more adept at reading that, discerning that, kind of trying to figure that out. Right. That makes sense. Don, what would you add?
Well, I think Bobby's making a great point. I've learned through the years in ministry that when somebody comes at you real intensely with an emotion that's inappropriate for the situation, there's always something behind under the surface there. So that's a really good point. I think that we've all read numerous things that talk about how much communication is body language, tone, that kind of thing. And so it's not just words that we're reading. We need to learn to read expressions, tone, and body language, which is a huge component.
Yeah, that's a great point. And then responding appropriately so that we don't do something we regret later on, or that we're able to defuse a situation, or we're able to respond pastorally in a way that's going to help them to grow and help them to acknowledge, the work of the Spirit in their life. So, well, let's talk about, we've already touched on this a little bit in the course of our definitions, but let's follow up and really make sure that our viewers understand why this is so important.
Well, one thing that I've found with emotional intelligence that's critical for ministry over the years is it's impossible to do ministry for any amount of time without people sometimes coming at you and saying things that make you mad. And I think if you really have a great grasp of your emotions, you have to learn, no matter what the situation, to keep cool about it. Because an angry pastor that blows his top, you can come back and apologize all day long, but you've hurt yourself. It's hard to recover from that. You've lost respect in the congregation. So I've been in ministry long enough. I've had really a lot of wonderful things happen, but I've had a few rough spots too, as we've all had. And I've learned to just not react in anger, and God has for sure helped me learn how to do that. But this is why this is really important, to have a grip on yourself, so that if somebody says something really insulting about your kids, your wife, or your ministry, that you don't fire off at them and then later have to try to pick up those pieces.
Yeah. And it's good to be aware, because we all have sinful patterns in our emotional life. None of us are perfect. We've all inherited patterns from our family and that sinful nature within us. And so it's good to be aware of things like that, where we might be prone to respond without thinking, maybe, So, Bobby, any other thoughts on why is this important for people in ministry to understand emotional intelligence?
Yeah, I think just to add to what you guys are saying, I think for all of us, we're all wired differently. And a lot of times we have those blind spots that we don't see in ourselves. And it's good to have those pointed out to us, and so we can deal with them appropriately. And also because we're in the people business. We're dealing with people, and we want to lead them to follow the Lord. But in that, people are people, and in that they have emotions they're dealing with, and we have to be very adept at learning how to understand what is being expressed, and also those issues that are behind that, in order to lead people in a better way. And so if we don't have a good grasp on that, we can really mess things up.
Yeah, true enough. As we've all experienced at some level or another in our lives, we've messed it up at home or in ministry or whatever it is. And so, listen, God created us as emotional beings. That's His design. Now, we don't always express our emotions the way that we should, because sin has entered into the world. But it's important to really be aware of this. It's such a part of human life, and it's really going to help your ministry be more effective. And so in the rest of this series, we're going to look at how to develop emotional intelligence, and we're going to look at some of the obstacles that are endemic to ministry that get in the way of healthy emotional intelligence. So we hope this is an encouragement to you, and that you'll take a look at the resources on the page below, and come back and check out the rest of this series as well.